Hey there, Foster Fierce family. Welcome to Interview with a Foster Kid, where we dive into the raw and unapologetic stories of Foster Fierce alumni, driven by a passion for creating a better future for our foster siblings around the world. I'm your host, Amira Therese, and I want to hear your story too. If you're ready to share, reach out to me at iwafosterkid@gmail.com, and don't hold back. We tell stories on this show so honest, they'll make your caseworkers blush. Now it's time for our next Foster Fierce episode. Listen mindfully and please enjoy. All right, Foster Fierce Nation, welcome back to Interview with a Foster Kid. I'm your host, Amira Therese. I'm here with our fierce foster alum, Tristian Smith. He is a published author. He wrote a memoir of his life, his journey through foster care, and his journey afterward, and how this system and a lot of other things came into play to create the person that we see here today. His book is called Against All Odds, and it is a read. Right now, I'm waiting for Amazon to deliver mine, but I've gotten into the digital copy, and let me tell you, from word one, you can relate. Tristian, thank you so much for coming onto the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and I'm so happy to have you here.
Hey, Amira, thank you for inviting me onto your podcast. To tell you a little bit about me, I'm currently a DoD civilian for the Department of the Air Force. I'm a former Army officer, as you mentioned, published author, Johns Hopkins graduate student, as well as a former foster youth.
Wow.
I'm looking to spend the remainder of my life, because this is going to be a rest of my life effort, to utilize my lived foster experience to help make a better place for foster youth when it comes to during their time as foster youth, as well as once they age out of the foster care system. So that was the inspiration for my book. And I want to use it as a vehicle to inspire other foster youth to go and be the best version of themselves.
That's amazing. I love that so many of us right now are finding our voices. I hate that it took so long. You know, I really appreciate the connections that you and I did not have. I'm not going to age you, but I'm thinking it's around, the same generation of foster alum. And we didn't have the connection of social media. We didn't really reach out. I mean, we were the mental patients. We didn't tell anybody about our stories at all. So I'm just so grateful to have found my voice. And I'm so grateful that it's a wave hitting all of my foster siblings around the world, all of us alums. We're coming out, and we're coming out really fierce for our siblings still in care. And it really, really warms my heart. But you, right now, you're in the military, which I kind of found that curious from being in foster care, moving from home to home, and then a life in the military. That really tell me about that, the difference there, the contrast of going through the foster care system and then something so structured as the military.
So I'm medically retired from the military in 2023. Fortunately, I had a back injury and had to have surgery and had to go find something else to do, which was relatively easy because I had my master's degree and was prepared for it. But what the military prepared me for and how it contrasted to the foster care system was, I guess, you're always moving. It's teaching you about adaptability. So going through the foster care system and going through as many placements and as many schools as I went through, I was well prepared for the military environment and what I would have to endure in such an environment. So you're constantly getting ready for training exercises. You're getting ready to, go to a different duty station every 2 or 3 years. You're constantly having to meet timelines with limited personnel and limited resources. So it taught you a lot of the things that you learned in the military. I had already learned as a foster youth.
That lived
So
experience is
yeah, that lived
incredible.
experience was
Yeah.
that was basically my internship
Hmm.
for the military.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but you seem to have really done well. The military experience and everything that you've done, I'm proud of you. But I want to bring you back. I want to talk a little bit more about your time in foster care. I know you went through a lot of moves. I can relate. I want to hear more about your story, though. How did you turn what you went through, that journey, into what you've become? Because I think that's where our foster siblings in care start to lose hope. What can I become? But it starts with the hardships that we experienced. So tell us a little bit more about that.
So so obviously as a kid navigating a life marked with constant change isn't easy, especially after, watching your mother die at the age of 7 and then dealing with traumatic abuse and basically torture from relatives. But I think I began to, I guess, harness an inner resilience. Every new foster home, every school brought a set of its own challenges, but it also brought unexpected opportunities to rebuild and redefine who I was. So I looked at education as sort of a refuge. I was a voracious reader.
That got me through too. I escaped into many books.
I enjoyed reading, so I could immerse myself in books and knowledge and kind of build sort of a mental sanctuary from the chaos that was going outside in the real world. And then I guess over time I developed a bend but don't break mindset, where even throughout the instability that I was having to endure, I kind of recognized that my the way I responded to things was something that I could control. I tell people that life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you respond to it. And then by leaning on, my mentors, teachers, I was able to, I guess, learn that the journey itself could further develop an inner strength that I could use to develop my future.
Such an epiphany. And I really hope that it's a paradigm shift too. It takes a lot of strength to do that coming out of what you've come from. I look at you and there's just this genuine tone to everything you're saying. But getting there, I don't see the struggle in your face anymore, which I love. I like to tell people I don't look like my past. In fact, if I told you about my past, you probably wouldn't believe me. You would think this chick's trying to get some attention here. She's creating a blockbuster. But I
Exactly.
want to let you know that I am very inspired, and I know that so many other people will be. Coming out of the foster system, it doesn't matter what we experience. It's so hard to be proud of ourselves. And I can see that you are. And I want to encourage the rest of our foster siblings to get there faster because it doesn't have to be this translucent carrot. It's right there. So I just really appreciate your story. And there's so much more to it. For our audience, read Against All Odds. This isn't just some other memoir that came out. It is, it's amazing. And you are a very well written author, Tristian. It's so genuine. And I love that. What inspired you to put pen to paper and to out your story like that? Because that's what it is. We have to come out as our past, we have to come out and embrace it. What was your inspiration and your strength that you found to do that?
So I think it goes back to being so as a kid, like being a reader, and I spent quite a bit of time in libraries to kind of stay away from gangs and staying out of mischief. And I didn't come across a lot of books written by former foster youth for foster youth. And so it was a way of transforming my journey and taking it and transforming into a source of hope and empowerment for foster youth. I feel like my life in foster care, with its challenges and heartbreaks, taught me that adversity doesn't define us. Our response to it does. And I wanted to give a voice to so many of those that struggle in silence.
The isolation, yeah.
Yeah, that isolation, that are faced, that foster youth face, and to highlight that even in those darkest moments, that there's a spark of resilience waiting to be ignited.
Yeah.
I feel like my book is not just a memoir. I feel like it's a call to action.
Yes.
And then I wanted to create something that foster parents, social workers, and the actual foster youth can take and look and apply it to their own lives and say, hey, I can take these steps, turn them into goals and applications for my life, and use it as a roadmap to my own journey of success.
That's amazing. And you're creating a roadmap, you're paving a path for others to find success as well. And that's really what our job is now, isn't it? I mean, we've been through it. Nothing has changed since I've been in the system. It's now my job. It's now your job. It's the alumni's job out there to protect our siblings around the world who are being isolated, who are being ignored. And your memoir
Absolutely.
is a beautiful gift to that mission. And it is not just a memoir. When somebody says buy my memoir, I'm like, oh God, okay, can we just have a copy and you can tell me everything about yourself? This is not a memoir. It's everything you just described it as. It is a roadmap. It is people say kids didn't come with instructions. This is instructions. If you are in charge of a foster child's care, if you are a social worker, if you are a CASA, read this book. Not only will you be supporting another foster alum, but you will be giving yourself the information, the encouragement, and the confidence to actually care for these children the way that we need it. So please get this book, Against All Odds. This is, like I said, it's a change maker. And so are you. I want to hear a little bit more about your time in the military. I know we kind of went over, but what do you think you took from that? I know that's such a reductive question, but what is the biggest thing you took from your time in the military, and how did it serve you where you are in your path now?
I think the military taught me the power of discipline, commitment, and teamwork, and the ways in which how I approach life. The military is a very structured organization. So compared to the unpredictability of my childhood, it instilled with me I guess I could say, a deep respect for accountability and precision. Because without, accountability and precision, people get hurt or they lose their lives. Like in something as simple as a training exercise, you're dealing with very heavy equipment, and if you don't know how to use that equipment, if you're not accountable for that equipment or accountable for your personnel and you don't know where they are, then, you have people you have to answer to. So, a lot of the stuff we do in the military, I guess regular civilians would consider it tough. But, we're trained to build a level of resilience. We have a training in the military called Master Resiliency Training that we take annually.
Wow.
That teaches you how to deal with adversity. But, fortunately for me, I had 10 years of Master Resiliency.
You came in prepared.
Yeah, so perhaps most importantly, I was able to serve under some extremely compassionate and experienced senior leaders that I was able to be mentored up under. People that I can call up to this day if I have questions about something. People that I haven't seen in 7-8 years, but we still text or communicate through social media.
That's cool. Yeah. Those kind of
So
relationships are hard to build as a foster kid, too. I mean, we don't really have any faith in the longevity of a relationship. I want to tell you a little story of my own here. When I aged out of foster care, I actually wanted to go into the military. I had my last foster parent was a police officer, and his wife was a sheriff. And I really wanted to. And you touched on a point that I actually had not thought of why I wanted to go into the military so badly, because we're so used to not being able to count on anything, no structure, moving. And the promise of the military is structure. And, you have your family. And I really wanted that. But because I was diagnosed, I wrote a poem that got me in a lot of trouble. After I turned 15, everything went downhill because of a poem. They didn't let me go into the army because, and that was evidence for it. They said that I was possibly sociopathic. I had severe ADHD, and they didn't really like my God complex. They thought that it was just a poem. It was a regurgitation of the truths I was feeling in my head in a poetic manner. I mean, so they were quite afraid of putting me into the military. I did crave, though, and I actually mourned that. It's something I never had. I mourned because I felt like that was my way. Right into the military, jobs, security. You have, like I said, that group of people that become your family. They depend on you, you depend on them. It's reciprocal. I think I crave that too. I felt like I put out so much of myself, my love, my attention, and my time, and was getting nothing back. So it was almost like being put into a situation where what I was craving was required. But again, I wasn't able, I didn't qualify for it because of the little notches in my psychological reports. So that was a
yeah.
disappointing.
See, the thing with me was I think I withheld a lot of that stuff when I went on to college. Like I, 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 I hid all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Like I, I didn't tell anyone. I got off all my medications. I, I started, trying to act like a normal kid because I felt like I didn't need any of my medications. Like I
Right.
felt like I I didn't need all this heavy therapy and whatnot that the foster care system was trying to impose upon me, and therefore when it was time to go to do a psych eval and
Yeah.
all that other stuff that the military had to do on me, I was able to pass with flying colors.
I'm so good at those. It's not even fun anymore. I mean, we did them like twice a year in foster care. So
Yeah, so maybe if I'd have been honest, maybe I wouldn't have joined the military. But
I tried to go in right when I got my GED. So that was the problem. I was still in the system. I was still very much labeled. People were still. So I got my GED, dropped out of high school at 16 because I just wanted to get out of everything. And then tried to go into the military, but my records had been sent. I was just not a good fit. But I want to know. So you kind of touched on something there. It's what we got in foster care is not what we needed. Like when I was sad, they gave me Prozac. If I couldn't sleep, they gave me Trazodone. If I couldn't focus because my life is a disarray of cluster, whatever, they gave me ADHD pills, Ritalin, Tegretol, and then of course the Trazodone was to put me to sleep at night because they had me on so many amphetamines during the day. So let's touch more on what we actually need because the therapy, you're not my person. And I'm not going to sit here staring at you longingly in the eyes until somebody says something brilliant. Okay. And I'm not talking about my dad with you because who are you? Like therapy wasn't what I needed. I needed community. I needed autonomy. I needed respect. And I needed to learn to love myself and that it wasn't selfish or to love myself the most. Because when we actually love ourselves the most, we can give love that is genuine. Otherwise, we're just broken, looking for somebody to fill it up, what we're not doing ourselves. So, what would you have needed instead of all the things they were shoving down our throats while you were in foster care? What would have been ideal?
Before I answer that question, it's funny that you mentioned trazodone because the VA has me on trazodone for sleep issues because I have like severe sleep insomnia. So it's hilarious that you, as a kid, were on that.
Pretty powerful
But
stuff. Yeah.
yeah, I'm on like 100 milligrams, and some nights I still can't sleep even with it. So, but to answer that, I think it starts with the home environment. Are we putting them in foster homes that allow them to feel comfortable? 98% of my homes that I went into, I just felt like I was just an object there. Like I was just someone to be
Yep.
told what to do, when to eat, when to get up, go to school. And the only time I was interacted with was, when I was getting in trouble or when someone needed to give me an order to do something. So a lot of times I just felt like a stranger inside of a home.
Yep.
And then oftentimes a lot of this mental health therapy or mental health counseling is court ordered. But what the courts don't understand, because they're so far removed from this kid, is that this kid doesn't, like you just mentioned, these kids don't feel comfortable sitting inside some old guy or some old woman's office, looking at all these degrees this person has and telling
Yeah.
them, "Hey, I just watched my mom shoot my dad, or I just watched my mom die, or I
Hmm.
just got touched inappropriately for years at a time, or whatever
Yeah.
the trauma is." Like, because they don't even understand their trauma. So how do you expect them to be able to articulate that trauma to someone they don't even know and trust? So when it comes to like 10, 11, 12, 13 year olds being able to articulate that trauma, you gotta find someone that they're willing to trust, and sticking them in some therapist's office isn't the right answer.
And you can only hear this is between you and me so many times before you lose
Yeah,
faith in the entire system. Because if that's true, why am I hearing it at my next case meeting? Why am I hearing it in court? This isn't between you and
exactly.
me. This is between you, me, the state, and whoever else is interested in the foster care experiment. And I think that people lose a lot of faith in therapy. I know I did because the this is between you and me thing got me slapped in the face more times than I can remember. When I did, I stopped trusting at about 13, these
Yeah.
therapists. I'd already been through, I don't know how many of them. And after 13, it was hard to, I like to say, therapize me. I had a lot of people just leave, and I would see them one week and they wouldn't talk to me again because I started flipping the script. I would start reversing the therapy. I became a psychoanalyst on my own, kind of a hound for their issues. And I would seek out things in their offices that would indicate issues. Like one time I had a psychologist who was wearing his wedding ring on his right hand. And I never saw him again after the discussion I had because I let him know. Let him know there were issues in his marriage. Um, and I'm not going to go
Who's
into
this
everything.
nosy teenager?
I got diagnosed with hypervigilance after that. Really, I mean, I to this day don't miss much. But all therapy really did was let me down. It was another lie. It was another thing that never helped and made me feel studied, like I was the research, not the person they wanted to help. So I think in therapy sessions, I think you're right. First of all, they should be autonomous. We go if we want to go. If I don't want to sit down and talk to, it would have been very triggering, and it was when I had to sit down and talk to a man. I have issues. I have trauma. They didn't listen to me. They told me get through it. I have very real issues, things that are immobilizing, especially when it came to older men. And to sit down and of course, I was going to punch my way out of that. Of course, because my autonomy wasn't being respected. So, on the subject of autonomy, I mean, your story, honestly, each chapter would have to be an episode. But speaking of autonomy, how important would that have been to you in foster care? Instead of hearing this is how we do things here, or this is how you have to do things now, or what would autonomy have done for you?
I think it could have done a lot. Because if you would have had people that actually were making effort, if you would have had people that showed that they cared, because when you constantly hear that, hey, we have to do this, it just means that you're going with the status quo. And it just means that, hey, we've done it this way. This is how we've done things, and this is how we're going to continue to do things. And it just means that you aren't putting the child's interest as a priority. So I'm going to suffer just like previous kids have suffered. So we keep crying about about the system needing to change. Well, you are the system, and you need to change. So what are you doing as a person, as an individual cog in the system, to implement change and be the change that kids need so that they can be successful?
That's true, because the change starts in your home. Like, you don't have to have the whole system backing you to make your home the change that affects the system, or at least this one child. I have not seen a lot of change. I haven't seen any. You know what I am seeing recently is people like you coming out. We have a lot of foster siblings. I mean, I'm talking to some in the UK, all over the world right now. Foster alumni are coming out and they're demanding change. I think one of the issues that we've been experiencing, first of all, we've had to piece life together with bad therapy, multiple moves, trauma that's been unaddressed, and then go into adulthood the day that we age outside and make the most of ourselves. Try not to fall into the statistic that we know is all too, it's impending, really. I mean, there isn't much of a light at the end of the tunnel for some of us. But there are so many people coming out now demanding that change. Your book, there are a couple of other, there's a movie coming out about transitional care. And I actually just did another interview with a foster alum who's creating a movie about his journey. And I'm really happy. I'm proud of all of us because I lied for years. I changed my name. In my imagination, my parents didn't exist. I was from Canada, and that's what I just told people. That was one of my many stories. It took so many years to pull myself back together and to add foster kid or foster alum as a empowerment term, because I was taught so much shame. So I'm just really happy. What is happening, what is changing, is our perception of ourselves. And I think that that's what we can affect, is the perception of our younger foster siblings of themselves, so that when they come out, they find that power. They change. These are innovators. These aren't just
Yeah.
trauma kids with bad parents or with bad backgrounds. These are innovators, creators. These are some of the most extraordinary people I've ever met. We are.
Yeah, and I think also when we talk about autonomy, like you just mentioned, it's all about maintaining that child's identity.
Yes.
Because typically, when you're a foster youth, you typically run into a child who is of a different culture, of one culture, living with a family of a different culture. So you want to help maintain that child's identity. It keeps that child maintains closeness or relativity with his or her culture.
Yes.
So you're talking about the emotional stability. You're talking about building self-advocacy skills. Because, in my book, I talk about the biggest advocate for foster youth is the foster youth.
Yes.
No one is going to advocate for you like you can. You are your own biggest voice.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to we have to implement, we have to put that skill into our foster youth, you know,
Yeah.
being more proactive in our own transition plans. What do you want to do when you get out of foster care? You know, do you want to go to college? Do you want to go to trade school? Do you want to, you know, go off to and join the military?
And if I may interject, I think that question, what do you want to do, is the most important one because too often we are told what we should do. There are so many different people. We are a mosaic in this whole world. Okay. There's not, college isn't for everyone. Trade school isn't for everyone. You know, creativity isn't for everyone. So what do you want to do? Really focus on that. And no matter who tries to get you off of that track of what you want to do, keep it in your mind. So you have to be malleable, like we talked about earlier in this episode, but keep in your mind what you want to do and never lose that part of your identity and practice it because practice makes permanent no matter what anybody says, no matter who gets in your head. I've had a lot of people try to throw my writing out of my head and put something else that they thought was more productive in there. I kept it though, and it was a lifesaver. So, to all of my foster siblings out there, all of our younger alum that are listening to us right now, what he just said was important. That's the question that you deserve. What do you want to do?
Yeah, and then lastly, what I want to implant in our foster youth is you at a certain point, in order to be successful, you have to ditch the victim mindset. I call it running in the victim Olympics. Where you're constantly blaming people, you're constantly
Yeah.
blaming all the bad things for why you're not where you are
Yeah.
in your life. Yes, there are things that happen in your life that are beyond your control, but the way you respond to them will have far more of an impact on your future going forward. So, you know, take your adversity and turn it into a catalyst for success, rather than a crutch for excuses and failure.
And I want to tell on that. I want to tell people it's a process. This is advice right now that if you practice it in your own life, you can do it. You don't have to go through. I didn't get that advice when I was younger. Really, I didn't get much. It was just like go out there and do better. You know, do better than what we expect you to do. So it is a journey. Don't find it, everybody makes mistakes. If you stumble and you fall, great. You just got better at getting back up. Okay. But keep getting up. And it's just such a good point. But I do want to say, don't get down on yourself if it doesn't happen overnight, because it won't. It's not going to. It is a journey.
Yeah, it definitely is a journey, and you know me, you know, I probably didn't learn a lot of these lessons until I was about 24 and 25. So,
Yeah.
you know, I had a great pair of mentors that I was put in contact with my freshman year of college, and even with them, you know, beating, you know, life lessons and guidance and mentorship in my head, it took several years for it to finally, you know, click.
Sure.
But you want, you know, life is a journey, and as long as you're, you know, taking one step forward every day, you're making progress. You know,
Yes.
there might be a day where you take a step or two back, but continue to push forward.
Yes, absolutely. I have a question that it's a big one because there's so many different ways we can do it. But how do we, as foster alum, as people using our voice, maybe there are people out there, they're not going to come in direct contact with a foster child. Well, you will, but you might not know it. We might not be at the stage of unveiling that. What can people do to better serve our foster youth right now? Not just the foster carers and the legislators, but those of us with a voice and a dedication to do it.
I think I we can we can continue to beat this until the cows come home. But it starts with systemic reforms,
For sure.
improving the foster care system. You know, ensuring that you know, we prioritize stable, nurturing places for these kids because these kids spend most of their time, either at home or at school.
Hmm.
So we need to ensure that we're we're putting the right foster parents with the right mentality and that understand the trauma that these kids have and how to help these kids cope with the trauma.
I had
And
a
then
lot of foster parents insulted by my unwillingness to do certain things in or the activities that for me felt like assault, and they didn't understand. So I think that that's so important too, the understanding that we're not. I'm not depressed if I want to be in my room and be writing all by myself. That's how I'm focusing my energy into something positive. So I think that that's a really good point. Sorry to interrupt.
no, and then once they hit their teenage years, education and career guidance, preparing them for, adulthood and college, creating, you know, exposing them to, different camps, whether it's, STEM camps, STEM focused camps, or military camps. Heck, if they want to go on an internship where they get to see policy changes being made on foster youth, that could be extremely eye opening.
Yeah.
Getting them a chance to go on college campus visits, and then mentorship. They say that 80% of kids that are mentored go on to be mentors themselves. I was mentored, and now I'm a child advocate. I'm a volunteer for CASA, and I'm a
Wonderful.
volunteer on the Foster Care Review Board here in Nebraska. So
Wow.
I'm going from a system where I faced extreme adversity to being a part and being able to impact kids that are going through the same system that I was once a part of. I think that's very important. So being able to provide mentorship to these young kids and just providing another resource to show these kids that we care about them.
I wanted to say I really wish, I know that it would just reduce greatly the amount of people that we have in place, but I wish that we only had people in place for these kids that were foster either lived experience or really actually not just trauma informed, but trauma able. I mean, you can be informed about trauma and not be capable of raising a traumatized child. I mean, so I really, there's something to. Have you seen the movie Shazam?
But Shaquille O'Neal,
No, no, that big goofy dude, Shazam. He's like a superhero,
a
DC.
superhero guy. Yeah, yeah, I've
Yeah,
seen it. Yeah.
and he lives in that foster home, and
I think
it's
I was
run by
talking about Kazam. Kazam was the one with Shaq when he was the genie. I'm
yes,
sorry.
Kazam.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've seen
that's a little
Shazam.
older. No, but this one, it's a foster home run by foster
Yep,
alum.
yep, yep, yep.
And it's man, when I watch that, I'm not watching it for the superhero. I'm literally having a cathartic moment every time, just how accepting they are, the way they let them set up their rooms. They come down to dinner, and that's their required time, but the rest of their time is their own. And they're being supported and they're going to college things. That's the ideal situation for foster care. I mean, and the family they created. I never felt like that in any of, I don't, there were some decent people, but none of the people I lived with should have been in foster care. I think it was so new. Even the very end, the two law enforcement officers, they were they were jailers. I mean, I I went from no structure to running 100 laps a day because their son would lie, and so we really, and yeah, yeah, yeah. I like that you relate to that because I don't, but I do. But so those are the kind of situations we're thrown around in. I kind of feel like you have a story here. I want to let you in after I told about the laps. Did you ever have like the physical, not the physical abuse, but although it is, I know now that it is, but the physical exercise consequence go too far?
Um, I don't think no. Outside of like my abuse, no. Uh-uh. The only, yeah, like I stay in the gym now. Like physical fitness is part of my daily routine, even with, the aches and pains that I wake up and go to bed with. So, um, it's all part of the benefit of my body now. So, but no,
Yeah,
I
and it's
can't
it's
recall.
hard to grow up resenting it, you know? You're like, I'm not
Yeah.
running. That's a punishment.
Yeah. It's like when your parents make you drink water as a kid, you think it's child abuse, and then you grow up and now you understand that, yeah, your body needs water because if you're drinking soda all day, you're
Yeah.
going to go into kidney failure. Um, but yeah, back to what you just said. A lot of the people that work with kids, whether it's social workers, therapists, foster parents, or even casas, like a lot of these people, they read about the trauma we deal with.
Yes.
They go to school and get degrees to understand, to try to understand us. But me and you, we've lived it, we've
Yes.
we breathed it, and we embody it. So I feel like we are. There's no one better to understand these kids and to gain their trust than someone who's dealt with these issues. And I'm hoping that more of us would get involved with these kids because I think it could
Yeah.
be life changing for them.
I personally feel like I owe it not just to my inner child and to my past to give it its purpose, but I owe it to our foster siblings to be an advocate, to use my voice. And I am a situation I don't think a lot of the system wants to confront. They could have changed things. I go from 0 to 60. I've had some emails lately from foster alum, or excuse me, not alum, foster siblings in care, that are triggering. I mean, I'm irate. The things that they're going through. I had a foster sibling actually, and he asked me not to mention it because, and I don't know if I could because he's in the system and he's also a minor. But he told me that he came across on social media his adoption advertisement. And he didn't know he was up for adoption. He had just heard that he had 120 days left in foster care before he was going home. And he is adamantly working for this. No idea that his mother, not an option anymore. He, on social media, came across his advertisement. My name is this. I like to play football. I love to read. It was advertising things that he had talked about. He said there weren't untruths. He just didn't know that he was coloring an advertisement for himself when he was talking to his caseworker about these things. I mean, these are things that are egregious. I've seen a lot of things, and I'm sure that you have too. I've seen some things we just don't say in polite company. I've seen some things
Yeah.
that are irredeemable. The fact is that I ignorantly thought that my issues had to have been seen by somebody else and were going to be changed for the next generation, but they weren't.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of, I do owe it. I think a lot of our foster alum out there, this is a call to action. We owe it to our foster siblings in care. Okay. When we finally find the empowerment behind our foster care experience, we owe it to the kids still in care to come out and change what they're going through. If you have seen problems that you experienced in care still happening, where are you at? That's what I'm asking. So I appreciate what you just said, Tristian, because this is a call to action. If you were in foster care and if things haven't changed, and I think they haven't, I don't know, I'll have to look up some statistics. We owe it to the generation. We did not pave the pathway that they can walk. It's time for us to start to get the tools and start paving.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I
Well,
absolutely agree.
I was gonna say, Tristian, you are literally. I'd have to make an entire show just about you, honestly. But I want to instead implore everybody read that book. But like he said before, it's an instruction manual. It can help if you're a foster carer, a social worker, an advocate. If you are working with foster kids, who better to teach you how to work with us than a foster alumni himself? Get Tristian's book, Tristian Smith, Against All Odds. You can find it on Amazon. Even better, I am going to link it in the description. You don't have an excuse. Get that manual and let's start making change. Tristian, I want to ask you, so many things, but before we go, what are some ways, and you've already really even empowered me, and I've had such a passion for this. A lot of it, though, is kind of disorganized. Before you go, could you let us know what are some actions we can take today in our own lives to create effective change for our foster siblings?
I think listening. I think that's probably the most important thing. They have something to say. They have something meaningful to say. They've been through a lot of trauma. They may not know how to articulate it, but we can help them articulate it. And once they do, let them talk. Take notes. Don't try to tell them, hey, I think this is what you're trying to say. No, listen.
Oh, I hate that.
And, let's try to find solutions to what they're dealing with. I think that at a certain point, kids can tell us what's wrong with them, and we should be willing to listen as adults. If it wasn't for adults listening to me when I needed help, me and my little brother might be dead, honestly, because that's how dire my abusive situation was with my relatives, from the abuse and torture we were enduring. So that's probably the most important thing, is to, listen, let them talk, because if they're able to gain your trust and they're willing to talk, let them talk, let them advocate for themselves, and let us create the changes that are necessary to suit their needs, because this system is for them.
Yes.
So, and the more they talk, the better, the better we can help create the system to be tailored for them.
Yeah. Absolutely. So get out of the way of change by listening to the experts, which are the people in the care of the system right now, and those of us who have left it. Listen to us. We want to make change. We're coming from a place of understanding. We're not coming out against anybody. We're not challenging anything but the status quo. Okay, because where it's left us right now, incarceration rates are through the roof for my foster siblings around the world. Homelessness, through the roof. More than 50% stay homeless well into their mid-20s. Hunger, poverty, pregnancies, young pregnancies. Let's just understand that where we're coming from, and I'm talking to the whole audience, we're coming from people who have lived this and would not wish it on our enemies. It needs to change. Foster care should be a platform to propel you out of trauma, not one that keeps you there. So together with foster carers, with social workers, with advocates and CASAs, with foster alumni coming forward and telling their stories, and with legislators getting out of the way of progress and getting on the right team, we can actually make some change here, systemic change. And we don't have to see these problems repeat themselves for another generation, because it's really hard to watch. Tristian, I really appreciate you. Definitely looking forward to that delivery date on my book. Not always saying a few more days here, but like I said, we just had that tornado here, so I won't call them and hound the customer service people too harshly yet. But thank you so much for coming on the show. I'd love to have you back on, and you've inspired me to take my advocacy even farther, and I hope that you've inspired other foster alumni out there to share their lived experiences to empower our siblings.
Awesome. It was a pleasure to be here. Thanks, Amira.
Thank you so much. And to our foster fierce siblings around the world, just know that we are out here, we are watching, but now we are activating. Okay? We want to hear your story. Send me your story. I talk to my foster siblings still in care, and what is between us truly is between us. I tell only your part of the story that you want me to tell. I don't say anything else, and I don't do anything without your permission. I want to talk to you, though, just as your older foster sibling who understands. iwafosterkid@gmail.com. Please reach out to me with anything. I don't care if you're having a bad Tuesday. I'm here, okay? I have a lot of them. So let's just work it out until Wednesday. I'm here for you. I mean it. I have services on my LinkedIn. Check them out. They are free to my foster siblings. I understand our predicaments. Financial barriers are not going to get in your way of anything I can help you with. And until next time, stay foster kid fierce.